Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Island Stat Football Show, the final edition for the 2022-2023 season. First of all, I'm your host, Earl Basin. Joining me as co-host Macy O'Dell. We'll be joined by Garrett Punterdale later on in the show. And this evening, we will also be joined by the Bermuda Senior Men's National Coach, Kyle Lightbourne. But we want to start off this evening, first of all, Maceo, by saying congratulations to the North Village Rams, winning the FA Cup final yesterday at the Philadelphia Southfield Stadium at the National Sports Center, 2-1, coming from behind to defeat the PHC Zebras. Obviously, there was a lot of talk weeks ago after I had interviewed Marco Warren. We talked about it, the fact that his presence would make a big difference. Did you see that in that PHC lineup?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, I'm with you, Earl. Yeah, congratulations to North Village. We have given North Village a lot of criticism this season. So they were under pressure. They were under pressure to be able to get a result in this match.
Did you see the coach's tweet last night?
I saw the coach's tweet on. I've been hit to Twitter. What is it called? Twitter, not Twitter.
Twitter, yeah.
Twitter. So I've been hit to Twitter. And I've been sending. Everybody's been sending me Kenny's tweets last night, and that shows we're having that impact. The idea of the show is to create conversation, create debates, and to create buzzes around football. And the fact that the history with Kenny at the beginning of this show, this season and last season, I had asked him directly to appear on the show because I thought what he has to say about football would add some value, from this platform. He denied, he declined to come on the show, as well as he says he doesn't watch it. But it's obvious that, there is some form of watching going on, and it's also obvious that it creates some type of responsibility and pressure. And that's what the media does worldwide, right? Is to create some type of pressure, some type of responsibility. And I always like to use John Barry as the mature coach, that when we gave him criticism, he took it to heart and he implemented that criticism in his way of coaching that started to move his team forward. And the criticism that we gave, that he was too nice as a coach, he wasn't ruthless, and he took it to heart. And you could throw the good and the bad of it, but kudos to Kenny. Congratulations to Kenny. I mean, he made and congratulations to North Village. I mean, he put himself against the wall up there by, he brought in two players. North Village showed a little bit of importance of the game where they brought in two players in Sadeo Dio and Jakeem Jennings. And he made a choice not to start one of them.
Right.
So he immediately put himself against, his back up against the wall, but that choice paid off because Jakeem came on and added the spark that North Village needed at the time. Sadeo was also involved in the sacking goal, But getting back to the Marco situation, PHC lost the Triple Crown the week before.
In the league,
they lost the Triple Crown, and that's the Marco situation is evidence of player power these days, right? Player power, but and there's two parts about it. I read Marco's article, and I think his article makes perfect sense as to how we move forward. It makes perfect sense to how we move forward, how we modernize the game and the rules, and obviously that's not going to be done under these current rules. You can't change the rules in the middle of the season, as much as I would have loved to see him play. But the fact that the coaching staff at PHC allowed him to stay on the field after the game was won, that's the first mistake. And that's the first, and I'm going to use the word, that's the first disrespect to the game and the significance of it. It became an individual situation. And then Marco, I saw the video, he could have scored.
Did I struck the first time?
He could have scored, but he chose to take a touch so he could play in his mate for the highest goal scorer. So he was going to give an individual accolades over what the team needed. And what the team needed is him to be off the field and resting up for the biggest occasion of his career and of PHC's career, one of the biggest occasions. And I use the word, when you lie to the game punishes you. And as a coach and a player, I have lied to the game. Like, I didn't train for this reason, or I selected this guy when he came late, or I played, and the game punishes you. The game will punish you when you're not truthful to it. And I think PHC lost to Triple Crown, then Marco couldn't play. Because if you look at the history between PHC and North Village, when PHC's beat North Village, it's Marco that's actually scored the goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but if we talk about the game, it wasn't a game of high quality. It wasn't a game of high quality. Nobody adjusted to the team that went against the WN was kind of better.
Yeah, it's a pretty better team. You're against the WN.
Yeah, the team that against the WN because the ball held up, because the ball was moving quick, and nobody settled on the ball to give a decent pass forward. And it came down
early on with the WN, North Village created a few chances, but with CJ Fubler in goal for PHC, he made 4 really important early saves or cutting out passes, denying North Village an opportunity to score. And I would say within the first 20 minutes, they had those opportunities, but they denied them.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. North Village kind of really bossed the game. They really bossed the game. I mean, 2 minutes in the game, Sadeo had an opportunity. The ball he was cleared through. The finishing was poor. He was cleared through. He should have touched the ball the first time. He let it bounce a few times, and then he chickened out when the goalkeeper was coming at him.
Yeah.
That was the first clear chance, and then the next one, Jazal was through. But that ball was just the ball. If you look at it, it was just a tap fast for people to really stay
up. It had
up.
that breeze behind it. See, it had that breeze behind it, and on that fast pitch.
Yeah, it was a tap fast with the breeze behind that. They couldn't saddle up with all the sort of raids on PHC PHC goal that North Village had in that first half. And I said to somebody, I said, when North Village go against the WN, they're going to saddle the ball a little bit better. They're going to have a little bit more time on the ball. And with PHC going with the WN, without Marco to control the tempo of stuff, it was obvious, isn't it? It was so obvious because he would have controlled the tempo of it.
Right.
He would have controlled the pass. We saw Marco up PHC that night with the WN, hit the ball against the WN and let it come back in. He's the person that regulates those type of things. So they were absolutely lost as to how to get the ball forward. And even I looked at, it's amazing because I watched the kid that I like in All Boy, right? Lodge. I'm sorry, Lodge.
Deon Lodge.
Yeah. I watched Lodge, and usually when he's got the ball, he's got somebody in Marco, somebody that's moving, that creates 3 options for him. He didn't have those options this time.
Yeah.
So he lost.
Everything was pretty direct to Paul, and North Village knew that and literally crowded him. So every time he touched the ball, 1 or 2 guys were right there to kind of disrupt the momentum.
Yeah, they would, and then even the 3 goals were based on mistakes. So if you look at North Village's first goal, Harvey didn't come up with the line. And when he left back didn't come up with the line, it kept Paul on side. So when the ball was headed back in the box, with the central defenders were coming up with the line, they were woefully out of position. And once he got position, he's got the strength to hold them off and blasted him in the goal. And
he did well to hold him off as well, because he had one on either side of him, and he had to really muscle one way to line himself up to shoot with his left foot.
With his left foot, so he did well to get in the inside of it. But he would have been offside. The line pushed up, which is correct. The line pushed up, but they left the left back there.
Right.
So that's why I played him on side.
Mm.
And then North Village's first goal, I actually didn't, even though I picked North Village to win, I thought they would win without Marco there. I didn't see how they was going to score. I didn't see, well, where were the patterns of play that they were going to score. Okay, one, into Jazal picked up a ball that seemed very harmless. And
As you recall, he went left first, went right, went back left. Well, and when he spun, well, because he had his back to go first. When he spun around, he created just enough space to get a shot off.
So my thing is the amount of time that he had with that ball that they didn't get 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 with him.
Right.
And he got a shot off, a clear shot off that beat the keeper.
Yeah. Naeem was more concerned about him going past him.
Yeah.
So he allowed him to go side to side and never put in that challenge.
That challenge.
To push him back.
And it ended up being a brilliant goal. I mean, it ended up being a brilliant goal that he carved it out. And then from there, I'm like, well, momentum shifted now. So you have to give North Village a lot of credit for the character that they showed, because they went down 1-0, and they showed a lot of character, and it was fitting that, the second goal came from their skipper in Tamai Janice, because he showed a lot of heart. He worked tirelessly, covered a lot of ground. I mean, still playing out of position. He's playing in the number 10 position. He seems to play. I think Kenny recognizes that he has to play, but he hasn't figured out what's best for him to play. Where's best for him to play? Yeah. So he's played in many different positions in this season, and his forward runs, he almost became like a striker at one time. And his forward run, he was put in by Sadeo, and PHC for the second year in a row is lowest up there by Bill.
But you know what's funny? In the previous final, when they played up at Somerset, the role that Tamai played yesterday, Trey Mean played that position and was allowed to go forward free, hang out up top, rim around. So by them switching it, I think it confused PHC a lot because they expected Tamai, who most of the season has settled just in front of the defense when he's played in the midfield, and he's always looking to make sure that his pass is either square or back.
Yeah.
But by him advancing, by the time PHC figured it out, they had created like 5 or 6 chances.
5 or 6 chances. And what Tamai would do differently from Trey in that position, he would win a lot of balls. He'll win a lot of balls, and he'll make it difficult for the defense to play out. So if you think about the second half, if PHC was trying to play over the top and let it go, Tamai makes that difficult. Tamai makes that difficult, and even if he doesn't win the ball, he closes it down as a ball winner in that. So he made that difficult because you're not really got a ball winner out of Sadeo on the wing. You didn't have a ball winner out of Jelly on the other wing, and nor do you have a ball winner out of Jaizal. But Tamai compensated for that in that position. He did compensate for that. But I mean, Village was definitely the dominant team and boss in the game the most times. I mean, it should have been a little bit more comfortable for them. But at the end of the day, that's not how finals go, right?
Yeah. You only have to be ahead by 1 when the final whistle's blown.
But
one of the things,
PAC missed that chance in the first half, that clear breakaway. Village defense got caught napping. And I mean, the kid had Wilson Robertson had a good 10-meter, 15-meter breakaway by his side.
But you know what happened to him? I think because he had so much of a lead, he didn't expect, or he was anticipating somebody challenging him. When he looked back and realized nobody was there, that's when he knocked the ball just that far forward and allowed D-Trey to get in.
Yeah. And D-Trey Bow, again, is worth his money in goal, right? Yeah. He's worth his money in goal because in those type of situations, he's stabilized, right? It was literally 1-on-1, and he's very dependable in that type of situation, right?
Right. Macy, we're going to take our first commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more with the North Village Rams winning the FA Cup at the National Sports Center yesterday. We'll be right back.
Putting down the weapons.
You seeing this? John Barrett & Son is bringing us something fresh and exciting for the new year. Bai Antioxidant Infusion Beverage. Bai delivers the natural antioxidant benefits of the coffee fruit in glorious combination with a variety of exotic fruit flavors, with only 1 gram of sugar and 10 calories per bottle. The folks at Bai are inviting us on a world tour through these amazing flavors. Brasilia blueberry, Zambia Bing cherry, Costa Rica clementine, Malawi mango, Panama peach, Ipanema pomegranate, Kupang strawberry kiwi, and more. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends. And that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
And welcome back. Well, Maceo, and I do want to thank the gentleman for sending me this. It's very fitting that the North Village Rams should win the FA Cup in their 65th anniversary season. They finally passed the Somerset Trojans with the FA Cup titles. Somerset has been stuck on 9 FA Cups for the last 33 years. The last FA title being back in 1990, when Dennis Braun was the skipper of Somerset Trojans. So congratulations to North Village, who have overtaken the Somerset Trojans. However, they still trail the PHC Zebras, I believe, by 1 now.
North Village, if I'm correct, North Village now have the most trophies overall.
No, they're 1 behind.
1 behind PHC still?
Yes, 1 behind.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Let me confirm that, because there was a discussion some time ago about that. We could continue to talk, and I'll find it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely North Village over the last 2 decades have been the most winningest club, right?
Right.
They've been over the last 2 decades that started with Morty coming. He started that trend. He won the league title after like 26 years of not winning the league titles, and then myself and Streaker took over and continued on that Morty work, and that also started with the likes of Kenny coming to North Village back in '96, I think '97. Kenny would have come back to North Village, and Morty would have started to win it in the early 2000s, and then after that it was Goda that continued to win it. Goda continued to win it, and Kenny won the league title the just prior to COVID. And so there definitely been a club, that over the last 2 decades have been the most winningest club and have been the most consistent club as far as trophies, and that breeds the expectation. And it's interesting that Kenny, as a coach, don't accept that responsibility, what the expectation looks like at North Village. I mean, he suggests it's about him being North Village. And then you have the likes of myself or Punchy talking. It's not just about winning a trophy. It's also about the style that we want to play. The conversation goes a little bit deeper as to how we want to play. What it looks like playing.
But I always challenge that, because do you have those players to play that style that you want to play all the time?
I actually think he does is just the puzzle piece, how you put those players together. I actually think you do have players that can play. Like if I looked at the team that he put out there and just using the players that he chose to select, in my head, I could line the players up a lot differently that play differently, and that's what I talk about, that puzzle. If I had to pick the starting 11 and pick the positions that the players play and the relationships. So I'll give you an example of a small example. I know that Sadeo Dio and Jali have a good relationship on the field and play. They have a good combination, as well as Jakeem. But when they're playing on opposite wings, they don't get to interact and relate to each other. They don't get to interact and relate to each other. So just that front three. So I look at Giselle, the type of player he is. He's not a player that brings other players into the game. He's very much interested in the goal. And you don't want to take that away from him. He can now play on the left. And he can win the ball, beat his player, and he's got one player to beat there, and it's good in the goal. And it's coming to his right foot. Whereas if you had a Jakeem Janin start that striker, Jakeem's going to hold the ball up, and Jali in the number 10 is going to drop it back to Jali. He's going to play it wide. He's going to link more people together. So just the type of players and the type of personalities that certain players are, you could get a different result of them in different areas of the field, right? So and that's. I mean, each coach has his way of doing things, so I'm not suggesting that is wrong.
On the flip side of that, Maceo, is that what happens if one of those guys are having a stinker? Does the coach take that on himself as well, because he decided to choose that player? Because hindsight is always 20/20. We can always sit back and say he got this right, he got this wrong. However, the coach puts players out there, and then it's up to the players to execute the plan.
Well, what you do, right? You want to create competition. You want to create, as a coach, you want to create cover for yourself. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself that you only got one player to do the job.
Right.
So that's about managing the group of players and managing them from a perspective of keeping them motivated, keeping them interested, and keeping them just on the edge of being in the team or even if they're on the field. So you want to be able to, players are so important. That's the most important thing.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
So you want to, and this is what I see about the game. Like even if you look at Pep Guardiola, people say he's got good players, but he keeps all those players just on the edge where he has two players that can play in each position. So he don't become a slave to the players per se, right?
But that's the luxury of being a professional and football becomes a business.
I don't think it's a professional thing that we're talking about. It's more of a management thing and keeping everybody interested and figuring out. And it's not an easy thing. Trust me, it's not an easy thing. I was looking at PHC. They were actually doing it this season. They were doing it how they was figuring out how to keep everybody on the edge and keep everybody interested. And they can, when players went in and out of form, they can bring players into their team. Whereas versus players just distancing themselves from the game and losing the dressing room per se. So it's a tricky little balance, right?
Yeah.
It's not an easy balance, right? And players are also selfish, right? So
they always want to play. They always want to play,
and they always want the game be about them, right? So if we're talking about Giselle, it's probably a challenging situation to make him play on the wing. So how do you figure out well, your back's on the left wing for the team because you're going to get your girls easier. And we're going to get you your girls easier because that's what you want. And we need your girls, and how do you figure that out? Because he's not a guy that links anybody into the game. And that worked out good for that girl he scored up there, but it's ultimately not really worked out good the whole season because he don't link a lot of people into the game. His interested in getting his girls.
Yeah. But we started off this segment about the amount. Actually, PHC Zebras have won 54 trophies, and now North Village Rams have won 53. So PHC have 12 league championships, 11 FA Cups, 13 friendships, 3 Modern Bears, 8 Dudley Eves, 7 Charity Cups. North Village have 9 league championships, now 10 FA Cup, 11 friendship, 8 Modern Bear, 8 Dudley Eve, and 7 Charity Cup. But the good thing is, the start of next season, we'll see these two teams, whenever they pick up or lose, start the season.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting for North Village. This being kind of put a lot of love back in a lot of situations. North Village could have been iffy if they would have not won this, right? It could have been very iffy what happened with players, and to be fair to PHC, that coach said it right. I mean, he's missed out on the Triple Crown a few times as a player. Everything has to be right, man. Having won that, everything has to be spot on. Like one little detail, one little mistake in a detail, the doubt creeps in. And PHC made a big mistake in Malta, right? They made a big mistake. I'll give you a story. I give a Bermuda story because in my team, in the Triple Crown team, we had Kevin, Keith, and we had Kevin, and this is about management. We had Kevin, Keith, and Canton. We're playing in the semifinals against Police.
Right.
I know, no disrespect, I know I'm gonna beat Police, man. I know there's no way what my team was doing at the time that we wasn't gonna beat a second division team at Keith. But I had 3 players on yellow cards: Kevin, Keith, and Canton. So this is what management looks like. I already knew Canton's going to be smart enough not to get another card.
Right.
I also knew Keith Jennings loves the game too much to get another card and miss a game. And it's smart. He loves the game too much. And I also knew once Kevin Jennings crosses the line, he's just passionate about the game and he ain't worried about no other circumstances around him.
Right.
So I don't pick Kevin to play in the semifinals. I don't even put him in the team to play in the semifinals. And I lied to him, to be honest. I told him, me and Streaker told him that, well, the players that want yellow cards were not going to play him. So he accepted that. And our Police were winning the game 4-0, comfortably halftime. And somebody tells Kevin that his brothers are playing. And it's like, hold on. But the coach told me that the people with yellow cards are not playing.
Right.
Kevin Jennings marches around to the field, man. Police you sit on the other side of the field.
Yeah.
Me and Streaker see him coming, and Streaker has a really good relationship with him. I have a really good relationship with Kevin. We grew up together. And we said, well, her the crazy comes together. And he came right to that bench. He gave us some very, very choice words. Very, very choice words he gave us, and he marched back up to the field because we didn't start. And it was all said, it was all over. The next game, he started in the finals. We won the Triple Crown, and his history. But that's all part of management. That's something that PHC didn't do, right? That's all part of management. And my ego could have been one that Kevin gave us some choice words. We're going to suspend him. We're going to do this. But the team needed Kevin. The team needed Kevin. Kevin needed to blow off his fuse to be able to get it out of his system that we lied to him, that was sitting everybody with yellow cards down. And once he got that out of his system, he was okay.
Right.
And that's what sometimes management of players look like, and knowing what they are as a human being, knowing what they are personally, and how you trigger them to get the best out of them.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to take our second commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by the senior men's national coach, Kyle Lightbourne. We'll be right back.
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends, and that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
Turkey's putting down the weapons.
You seeing this?
Here's one of our favorite feature brands, true veterans of the food awareness movement. Bob's Red Mill, the U.S. leading miller of organic whole grain foods. Only whole grains have the entire value developed during growth. And once you try them, you know that this is the way food was intended to be. Try Bob's Red Mill blanched almond, whole wheat pastry, and artisan bread flours, and 1-to-1 gluten-free baking flour, unsweetened shredded coconut, gluten-free homemade wonderful bread mix, and a variety of rolled oats. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. But we want to welcome Kyle Lightbourne, the senior men's national coach. Kyle, you and I have had a conversation. One of the biggest concerns of this country is the unavailability of players. You as the national coach, and Mason and I and Punchy and Keita often talk about what's available to us. How do we get the best players on the field? But it's got to be a growing concern as the national coach. How and why we can't get that? What do you think it's down to?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. It's availability of players. It's a problem for us. I think players see the ones that are going overseas. Some of them see that, it's better for them to stay where they are than come back and represent their country. Maybe we need to start looking at those that are in the professional ranks or semi-professional ranks, using the FIFA ruling and saying if they don't want to represent their country, then, they can't play for their clubs until then. So that's one way of doing it. And then it's down to pride with players, having that pride to want to represent your country. When I was growing up, I wanted to represent Bermuda as much as possible. Unfortunately, it wasn't like this the way it is now. This is an ongoing thing. We've been crying out for this for years, of a regular football for the national team at all levels. And we're getting that right now. So it's the best opportunity for players to showcase themselves. If you're down as an international player, that gives you even more clout going to a club. So that's a huge problem for us right now.
No, we've watched a lot of the local guys play this year, and obviously there's quite a few guys that stand out that we're noticeably absent from the selection of the national team for the last 2 games. Why would you think people, especially on Ireland, would refuse a chance to be called up to play in the national team?
I don't know. Several players that were asked, are they interested? And it was outright no, not interested. So yeah, that to me, that's a huge problem. If they don't want to represent their country, and I'm pretty sure it's not down to coaching staff. I think that's down to whoever's in charge. People don't want to play for whatever reason. We probably need to get to the bottom of it, and find out why players don't want to play.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to quickly interject with Maceo a minute, because Maceo, this is not unique. We've seen it over the last probably 20 years that we've watched, that some of our better players choose not to represent the country. How do we address it? Are we asking the players to be honest and give an honest reason why?
I actually think, I've talked to players, and I've talked to players, and the feedback that they give, it would have to be, oh, I don't like this coach, or the coaching style of this doesn't suit me, or this environment doesn't suit me. No, I don't buy into that. I'm asking the question to see what their side of the equation actually is. I know I come from a place where Carl comes from, where if I want to represent my country, I come from that place regardless of who's there. Because at the end of the day, I wouldn't, if I'm up there, I'm not really playing for Kyle. I'm playing for Bermuda, right? Kyle just or the coach happens to be the one that's there. I'm more playing for Bermuda. That's how I see it. I know this new generation don't see it like that. They're a touchy-feely generation. And me and you talked about it before. Once upon a time, we had politics eliminating our best players because the Dreads couldn't play.
Right.
They couldn't play. We had politics eliminate best players. Now, for whatever reason, between all of us, whether it be the media, the BFA, the coaches, and the players, we're eliminating ourselves. So I think this is the platform that we actually call it out. We call it out. I mean, I spoke publicly about my nephew, Remy, refusing to call out. And I think the stage in his career, what he was at, come and play for Bermuda, maybe getting a goal or two, getting some love, it could be the platform. And Mark Wade spoke about Reggie Lamb always choosing to play for Bermuda. He spoke about that, So I think we just have to have an open dialogue, and Carl mentioned, Carl, and I'm going to ask Carl a question after, but you also mentioned enforcing the FIFA rule. Yes, that's the thing, but we all know it's better when people want to do something. That we know it's better when we convince them to do something. So the question I get out of that, because we know what got touchy-feely players and what got clickers relationships, from a coaching staff point of view, my perspective that there is more of us that can connect and be a part to bring players into the field, whether it be in scouting capacities or whatever. What do you say to because I also look at who's out there. I look at myself and Richard Todd, that's in Bermuda, that understand the youth dynamics, that are capable. I look at Dan Azul, that's over in Coventry, that's very capable. We already got Corey Hill, that's over there, that's got a network of players. So in my head, I think if we engage, and even in a Connor Smith, that's and Sean Goda, if we engage in that helps feed into this here, maybe that is a solution to put pressure to get the best players out there. I don't know, but it's just we need to talk about this in this platform, right? Because and I'll say this to you, Carl, very directly. and I said it on the TV. While I'm not sold on the other coaching staff that's there, they're there. They are there, and that's the selection that's being made. I actually understand your international pedigree because of what you've been exposed to, and I'm seeing if you have resources and players that you can figure out puzzles. You can figure out puzzles and resources and players and games that are capable of figuring out puzzles. So it's just about how we do that, right? And how we talk about it. Let's call them out, man. Let's call it out. For me,
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right in what you're saying. It's, after games, if you don't win, everybody's got to say, and rightly so. People pay their money; they have a right to speak. But sometimes you have to get the facts before you speak. You just shoot your mouth off, or why this player's not playing, why that player's not playing. Maybe if you ask the players that you're talking about, they'll probably give you a good answer. The answer that for instance, the two boys from St. George's that stood out. Ask them to the two Hole brothers. Ask them to come to training. It was an outright no, not interested. And that's coming from their father. They're not playing for Bermuda because they weren't selected at under 20 level. I mean, we're going to be bigger than this.
Yeah,
We have to be. Nathan Trott, who's over there in the UK. We've been trying to get him to be involved in the Bermuda setup for years. The last time we contacted him, he said, "Do not call me anymore. I am not interested." So what do? We have produced these players. Yes, they're going and done better things, but those are some of our best players. Now, representing Bermuda, not everybody's going to get a chance to play, but at least give yourself the opportunity. Give yourself the opportunity. So we have to move on to different players. It's the same with Marco. I've begged Marco to come and play for Bermuda. I heard Antoine say the other day that he should just retire because nobody gives him that opportunity. Marco played in the match that we beat Nicaragua 2-0. He played in that match, and he was outstanding. And he hasn't played for Bermuda since then. That's his choice. That's not down to nobody else but him. And I understand his situation at this time. So, after games, we say, "Oh, why isn't he playing? Why isn't that person playing?" We have to look at the whole picture. And I think, and the point that you said about the rest of the coaching staff, I disagree to a fact. I think we need to bring in maybe more coaches, but the coaches that are there with me bring good quality. Like Ray Jones has a lot of quality within in this setup. Maurice, very good at what he does. I brought Ben Petty in over the summer, and it was unfortunate that he wasn't able to come back. But we are talking to him to come back and be a regular part of what we're trying to do. And he's a connect in the UK, someone that's coaching at the highest level. He coaches at the highest level. He's coaching players that's at Premier League level. So, and I reach out to a lot of my resources. I look all around England and people that are coaching players that are played against, so it's just a matter of people wanting to play for their country.
What would you say, Carl, we all know everybody has a different, there's no right and wrong way of the game, and everybody has a different way of perceiving the game and a different style of the game. What would you say to a Marco Warren, or as far as your style versus what his style of the game is? What would you say to the players like that? Because that's a conversation as well. That Carl's style of the game doesn't suit my style of playing. So, okay, I'm going to back off and not be a part. What would you say to that type of conversation?
My style of football, I like to win, right? First and foremost, right? We want to win. Right now, we're not winning. but I look to play through the lines. I don't just lump the ball up the field. Players make decisions when they're on the field, and they feel out one another. Our first match, we couldn't play through the lines with our two midfielders that we had. For whatever reason, I think Aurier was trying to play. Roger didn't play. And we have to look at the personnel that's available at that point. You know, we're trying to groom Riley Robinson, who is an outstanding young player, but unfortunately he wasn't available for this game. He's away on a trial in the UK. So, you know, it's so many things. And he was on our last trip with us when we went to Dominican Republic and we were in Guyana. So we've been grooming youngsters, bringing them along. And, you know, for my part of it, was disappointed that he wasn't available because he probably would have got that opportunity to play. You know, as long as I've been coach of Bermuda, I've never asked the players to just lump it forward. So I don't buy that with players saying, oh, my style of football. What's my style of football? What's their style of football? I watch these guys week in, week out. I watched the game yesterday, and both teams went from back to front when they were going to with the win, right? And when they were going against the win, they tried to play through the lines. But the minute they went with the win, it was bang, straight up the field because they were going with the win. Like, that's what PAC done second half, and it allowed North Village to take a hold of the game. In the beginning of the game, North Village could have scored 2 or 3 goals from that direct ball. You know? I mean, every team at some point you have to go long. You can't always play short. You know, you got to pick your moments to go through the lines. Yeah. Ideally, we like to get on the outside of teams, balls close to the face of the goals. I think if you look at most of our games, we don't just go long, you know, we don't. Even against Mexico, against Panama, against all those top teams, we didn't just kick it long. You know, so I don't buy long ball. I played for PAC. We used to play long ball back then. So me as a coach, I understand that. I also played in the UK where we played long ball. Yeah. So me as a coach, I don't just play long ball football, you know. So for players to say that, those are players that's probably not even worked with me. You know, I've introduced a lot of things to Bermuda football that I see other coaches doing. When I first started the high pressing, people were like, "What are you doing?" But the game has moved on. You know, even the players that we had. Okay, if we go back to the beginning and when we played against Aruba, we were trying to play that high pressing style football, but not all the players were buying into it. We got the data back to show them, point it out to them, and then they could see it. So it's a process that players have to go through. You know, I'm talking about like Reggie had a problem with it, Willie had a problem with it. But once they see it, you know, we show it back to them, they grasp it and they enjoy doing it. You know?
Yeah. But we're going to take our final commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation with the senior men's national coach, Kyle Apple. We'll be right back.
It seems everyone knows someone who's lactose intolerant or just avoiding dairy products. And fortunately, there's a growing array of delicious and nutritious alternatives. Pacific Natural Foods have been doing things their own way simply and sustainably for over a quarter century, making non-dairy beverages with the finest possible ingredients right down to the packaging. Try Pacific Natural Original and Vanilla Hemp Milk and Almond Original Plant-Based Beverage, all sweetened or unsweetened, and low-sodium organic vegetable or chicken broth. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, you know, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends, and that's what I'm thankful for.
It's putting down the weapons.
You seeing this?
Welcome back. Kyle, we've seen the numbers of players dwindle throughout our seasons, our last few seasons, with the increased numbers of players going away to school, taking up the academy issues, opportunities in the UK and so forth. As the national coach, what do you think we should do with our domestic league to ensure that both the First Division and the Premier Division are more competitive?
I think that comes with probably limited the amount of players that one team can have. You know, like it's every year someone gets a big influx of players.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a few years ago it was Danny Town, and then it was someone else, like Rangers lost 16 players.
Mm-hmm.
Somerset lost a host of players. PHC lost a host of players. A lot of moving around doesn't really help, you know, nonetheless the filtering to other teams that's in the Premier League to make them, you know, more compatible. You know, Robin Hood lost a lot of players and they were handicapped from the beginning, you know, so they were never going to be able to be competitive. Mm-hmm. So that drags down the league. The moving of players doesn't help. I mean, yes, it's okay for players to move, but, you know, you look at a player would be at Dandy Town one season, the next season is at PHC, and then the following season is at North Village, you know, and that's not good for football.
What's your thoughts on, because the card that you get in your first year as a player is valid for 3 years. What's your thoughts on the possibility of once you register, you stay?
We should introduce a transfer window. Mm-hmm. Maybe, you know, halfway through the season where players can transfer. The ones that, for whatever reason, move on. You know, they go to clubs and they sell a dream that they're going to be playing. And they promise this, that, and the other, and then they find out, oh, I can't play, or I'm not playing. You know, it's not, the grass is not green on the other side, so to speak. And it should be an opportunity for players to, especially the ones that have never stepped foot on the field for someone, you know. If you played a certain amount, I mean, our windows should be a little bit different. If you played a certain amount of games, then you have to stay with that club, right. You know. And then if you haven't played because you just can't make the team, then you could be up for, you know, transfer at halfway through the season. I mean, that's something that they possibly can look at, you know. And I also think the Corona League hasn't helped our league overall because we lose players younger. You know, 23, they're going to play Corona League. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's a great idea, you know, but it doesn't help the situation. You know, especially when we lose so many of our better players go overseas. So of course our league is not going to be as strong as, you know, as it once was. You know, before we had every team had a reserve team that played on a Saturday. You know,
Right.
you name a team, they had two teams.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you couldn't get in the first team, sometimes some guys struggle to get in the second team.
Yeah. That alliance team.
But
Yeah.
but times have changed. You know, and we have to change with the times, without a doubt. You know, and I really do think the BFA have come on leaps and bounds from when I was a player to how they operate now. You know, so a lot of credit goes to the people that's done a lot of hard work there. You know, and most of them are volunteers, or you know what I mean. So it's hard work. Everybody just turns up and wants results, but it is hard work.
Before I let Maceo ask the question, one of the things, you know, spectators who probably don't even entertain going to a game, but the minute they see a score line, obviously when we lost 2-0 the other day, you know, the first thing they want to do is get rid of somebody, and of course that somebody is always the coach.
Yeah.
How do we change that perception locally? Because I know, and I've walked away from several conversations since last week Saturday of people that the first thing I asked them were you at the game? And the answer is no. Okay, so why weren't you at the game? Because I don't follow the team. So why would you complain who's at the helm and who's not at the helm?
Yeah, I totally understand that, you know, and people jump on the bandwagon. It's a bandwagon thing. People hide behind the internet, you know, typing on their phones or whatever, making comments. You know, I saw a comment from someone, and I asked their son to play, and their son declined the offer to play. You know, so why you as a parent saying, "Oh, that was terrible"? No, your son possibly could have helped us. You know, he's an up and coming young player. So like, I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Maceo?
Two things to this, and you know, this is a great platform all the time I like to hear from the horse's mouth all the time. One question I hear is, I don't think the coaching staff at the national level get enough opportunities to test their players prior to exposing them to an international tournament or being in a pressure situation where we're trying to figure things out in a pressure situation. That's one of my pet peeves. What would you say about you as a coach having enough opportunity to test players under less than pressure situation? Is that adequate enough? Is that something we can do better with?
I think, yeah, it is something that we can do better, of course, because we don't have games before our international match, you know, to fit the time in. International football works on a 10-day window, right? In order to get our best players or the players that are contracted to clubs, that's the only time we can get them. And, you know, it's too risky to have a game when the window opens. And then sometimes you have 3 games within that window. Sometimes you have 2 games within that window. So the best time to have games is not during the window, but you're dealing with players that you're possibly not going to use. You know, yes, you could use it as development, work on your different tactics and stuff like that. Yeah, so ideally, yes, you know, in an ideal world, we would like to have more training camps. And, you know, if we done a 10-day training camp, for instance, somewhere, anywhere outside of Bermuda, we possibly can have 2 match games in there, but training it as well, you know, but we have to fit that time in to do it. You know, ideally, you know, this summer coming up, we got the Island Games. So, you know, a lot of the boys that will be playing, we'll pick up on September for the senior team. Right. You know, so we could use that as an example. Yes, it's going to be different coaches, but it's still, you know, the same players that are going to get that exposure. So it is difficult when you look at when the big top international teams, how they operate. they operate on the window system, just, the FIFA window system. But if they don't have a full international, they play a friendly during that time. Sometimes if we don't have a full international, that's when we need to have those 10-day windows and still be in operation and
still be in operation.
Yeah.
And
That's the delicate part. Yeah, man.
yeah, that's the part. That's always been my pet peeve. My last question, very loaded one, is, I mean, we know, we speak of the coaching staff, and I think we Bermudians understand the game. We understand how we wanted the game. Everybody that comes here speaks of that we're highly educated in the game. But coaching becomes being able to translate what you understand to the players at a quick speed. Sometimes you don't have the time. And then this is conversation about coaches losing the dressing room. And if you lose the dressing room, no matter how much you understand of the game, we're not going to get that result. Where do you think you are as a coach in sort of commanding your dressing room and that coaching staff, commanding that dressing room, getting players on board to listen? And I say that because I saw what you did. I saw the progression with the Regis and those leading up to the Gold Cup to convince people to do certain things. I saw what that looked like, and I saw some of the positive professional displays. And if we look at the Gold Cup, I think there were professional displays, and just a lack of quality let us down sometimes. And you just can't do nothing about the lack of quality in certain situations. If Maradona's not on the end of the ball, if Maradona's on the end of the ball, it becomes different. So where do you think you are as far as commanding that dressing room and being able to get the players to buy into what you're saying?
I think I'm in a good space in the dressing room with the players, and with the association first and foremost. With my boss, who's Maurice, and the president, Mark Wade. I think especially Maurice and myself, we have a lot of conversations. I think we are going through a transition period, looking to make the squad a lot younger. And when you go back to, so if I go back to the beginning, when you said we were preparing for the Gold Cup, once we made it to the Gold Cup, it was excitement amongst the players, even the coaching staff. Like, I put a ban on I was able to do that then, ban players from drinking alcohol, even myself, 10 weeks before that tournament, all the coaching staff, we're not allowed to touch alcohol. And that was the same for the players, because we were going into an environment where we're not used to as a nation, and we trained like a professional team. I had them 6 weeks prior to that tournament. So we were able to put the hard yards in. Everybody knew exactly where their body was as far as the fitness wise and all of that. The amateur players were up to speed with the professional players. As far as fitness, we were gauging them. Even when the key came back, he even said, "Hey, I'm gonna catch up," because remember, he had finished his season, and he needed a break. So we allowed him to have a break, but that 2-week break that he had, and then I think he had maybe 3 weeks to get ready for the Gold Cup. And he was chasing a little bit to find his fitness back to where it should be, because everybody else was on a level. And that's an adjustment within itself for players when we go from training twice a week to 5 and 6 times a week. The bodies are talking to them there, and you have to get used to it. That's something I had to get used to as a player. You just can't say, "Hey, we're going to train 5 days a week." This is something that you gradually have to do. And that's why we were able to put in those performances, and we done a lot of work. We had extra coaches at that time. Scott Morton was there. We as the coaching staff, we were getting him like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and turn around and training again at 10 o'clock in the morning. You know, as a coach, like people just see the output on TV. You know, I had 3 months at Walsall working under Dean Smith, right? And this was my daily routine was be in training at 7:30 in the morning.
Right.
Training don't start until 10:30, 11 o'clock sometimes. So we're there early. We do training session. You know, the players will come in and they'll do the gym work and stuff like that. All the sessions were planned out. We know who we got, we know who we're not got for the day. And then they have another session afterwards with weights and different things like that to keep. And as a coach, your day is not done then.
Right.
You know, so we either have to go watch a game, watch a player, then and all that, and then you may have to drive 2 hours to watch a player, watch a game, the team that you're playing against next, or whatever the situation is, you know, and then you're getting home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, you turn around and do it again. So
all over again.
hey, it's a lot of work in that, you know, and coaches, obviously the top coaches, they have more support, you know, the top clubs. But at a club like Walsall, the manager does a lot of things and his coaching staff have to be prepared to dig in and
Right.
do the work.
Mhm.
You know, that's why they operate as a team.
Well, Kyle, I want to thank you for joining us. Glad we had this opportunity to have this chat. It makes a great way to have this dialogue, only because, as you've already indicated, you're hearing it from the coach's mouth. And now I think, you know, in our conversation some time ago, we need to have those players who choose not to represent come on and explain, because in a way they're cutting the public that support them, they're cutting them short by choosing not to play. But we need to know why you're not playing.
Yeah, it's a gap we have to bridge, and I thank Carl for coming on. I mean, this example of all the other coaches in Bermuda. You know, we started the show off talking about Kenny Good on Twitter. Come on the show and
Right.
and say what you have to say and give your education, your perspective. And I think the media has a role to play to hold the game accountable. You know, that's what it does in other jurisdictions. It holds the game accountable, right? So I always can respect these type of conversations.
Yeah, I definitely think it's important to have these conversations. You know, everybody has to voice their opinion. I'm not one, I've never shied away from competition, or, you know, if the team's doing bad, guess what, guys? I take it harder than the supporters. You know, I have to live with the results as well. So don't think us as coaches don't care.
Right.
You know, it's hard to watch your team not play well. You know,
Yeah.
so you can't play well all the time. So, but when you're in charge, you know, that's the way the world is right now. It's always blame someone, or this person needs to go. You know, it's always someone that can do a better job than you.
Right.
That's just life. You know what I mean? And I understand that. Totally understand that.
So while we're on this topic, let me ask you: more than 10 Premier Division coaches in the UK have been sacked. 13. There's only 7 left that started the season with the team they started with. What does that say about the Premier League?
It's all about results. You know, that's bottom line. Like, for instance, my good friend Dean Smith, who was Aston Villa's manager before
Steven Gerrard
took over. You know, he went through a little bad patch with Villa, and they got rid of him, right? And then they thought they were getting something better. And Steven Gerrard, you know, it just papered over some of the cracks. They had a few injuries and stuff like that. And it's just such a need to stay in the Premier League, need to get in top 4. You know what I mean? It's all that's the end and be all of it all. you know, and speaking to my mate Dean, who came to Bermuda in the summer, you know, he spent time here with me, and he went to Norwich City, and since which he got this sack from Norwich, you know, and Norwich needed to get back in the Premier League, and you know, so it's just a results-driven business, and that level is totally different. But the one thing that happens at that level that doesn't happen in Bermuda is that they get paid handsome. You know, to get the sack. You know, you look at the coaches that have had the sack.
They gladly walk out the door because they're being compensated.
Yes, they're being compensated well. You know, so you know, but it's a, you know, the supporters, they rule the roost when it comes to whether they're happy with the coach or not. And when he got the sack from Villa, a lot of the supporters were absolutely surprised because he was doing a fantastic job there with them. Had taken them to a cup final, you know, brought them out of the league, out of the championship. They had a really good season.
They thought they had a hero. They thought they had a hero down the road at Rangers.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the way it goes, you know. But I think he'll be back and he'll take up a club. Since which he told me he lives stress free now. He's enjoying life. He's doing some stuff in America right now, I think. That's Dean Smith that I'm talking about. He's got a son over there in university, so he spends a lot of time backwards and forward through England and America now. So, you know, he sees a different side of life.
Yeah.
He sounds like me since I'm not been coaching football. I'm a pundit now. I can just say whatever I want. I can say whatever I want now.
They said, I tell you, the phone's gonna ring this summer.
I see a whole different side of life now.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, folks. In a matter of 4 weeks, we should be up and running with the Islandstad Cricket Show that will run during the cricket season, and the fourth edition of the Islandstad Football Show will get underway the week after the Charity Shield. So we'll be back in sometime in September. Kyle, I know you have a busy schedule over the summer. Good luck. Hang in there. And Bermuda, we need to get our better players making themselves available to represent the country. Let's figure it out together. Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Thanks. Good night.